happens in real time? How do we help students learn within that?
What stories do they have to share? And are there...
I need to understand, they can't get food.
Fourthly, they need to foster a healthy disregard for the impossible.
Have y'all ever realized some of
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys for having me. I want to start out by thanking Ted for having my message, and also want to say hello to all the TCC and FMP followers on Twitter that are watching this conference this afternoon. My name is Zach Freeman, and this is the logo of my book. I wrote a book when I was 18 years old that highlighted how to get a free education, good free education at that. And so my message today is sometimes received with a hesitant ear, because I talk about the financial aspect of that. There is a certain taboo, I suppose, involved with talking about money, especially in this culture. And so today I want to just ask that you'll hear with attentive ears, and if I'm not causing you to think today, then I'm wasting your time. And if we can understand the link between our education and achieving our American dream, I think that we'll be better off. I want to introduce to you a quote this afternoon from a man that I believe is one of the greatest presidents this country has ever seen, in John F. Kennedy. He was a champion for education, a champion for reform. And he said, "Let us think of education as a means of developing our greatest abilities, because in each of us there is a private hope and dream which, fulfilled, can be translated into a benefit for everyone and a greater strength for our nation." I really enjoy this address that John F. Kennedy gave on education, because it's somewhat putting a new idea out there. The idea that John F. Kennedy is putting forth is that when we invest in our own dreams as American citizens and don't subscribe to the notion of a standardized education, that we have a benefit for everyone and greater strength for our nation. I don't think John F. Kennedy was talking about the fact that we needed a standardized education, but yet allow students to learn what they were going to learn to thrive and grow and bring strength for our nation. So I'm troubled by some things that I see our country going through. I see history repeating itself. I see a 9% unemployment rate. And I see $1 trillion in national student loan debt. Debt is something a lot of people don't want to talk about, because the average college student graduates with $24,000 of it. Currently, the unemployment rate, like I said, is 9%, but it varies in categories. I had the opportunity to speak with the mayor of a municipality here in Middle Tennessee recently, and what he said to me was, there is a 3% unemployment rate for skilled labor. There's a 20% unemployment rate for unskilled labor, meaning that there is a margin. In my opinion, there is this underlying belief in our society that people who don't have a bachelor's degree are somehow second-class citizens. There is I got to speak with a lady the other night whose husband works at a automotive group here in Middle Tennessee, and she said that her husband is very high up in it, and they can't find enough auto technicians to get the work done that they need to get done. Therefore, they're starting all of their employees at $100 per hour, that's a pretty good living, if you ask me. So, like I said, the average student graduates with $24,000 in student debt, yet we're seeing a problem of students graduating and being unhappy. Not only is the unemployment rate high, but they have so much debt they can't pay it off. If you're paying attention to the news at all, you've seen the Occupy Wall Street protests, in which 90% of the protesters have some form of college education, yet they still can't find a job. So today I want to explore and ask you the question, is the problem with unemployment in education the fact that there aren't jobs to be had, or is it that we're overqualified for the jobs that we have? This is an idea that is very unpopular for a lot of people to hear, because in society we are taught, which I believe is the next slide, we're taught in elementary school that our next step is middle school. Once we get to middle school, we are prepared for high school, and once we get to high school, we're prepared to go to a college. It is a system that our society has created with good intention to get students to the point where they're intellectually knowledgeable and that they're employable and marketable. However, it's come to a crossroads where the amount of jobs available don't match up with the amount of graduates there for them. So we have to change something. If John F. Kennedy wanted us to achieve our American dream, which I believe he did, this isn't the way to do it. The way to do it is to allow students to thrive within their atmosphere, learn new things, and learn in their own way. And what's missing in our current education system is passion. We go to school for 7 hours a day and learn information that may or may not interest us. 7 hours a day. And then, we don't have time to go learn information that we actually want to learn. We just learn what's taught to us. So I think our current education model is broken in the first place. But I read a really unfortunate story about 1.5 years ago in the Guardian newspaper in London. And they did a study and asked the simple question, are you happy with your life? An astounding 60% of the people that answered responded with no. And of those 60% that responded with no, 94% were college educated. So there is a gap, there is a margin in our education system in which people are not coming out prepared to achieve their American dream, which opens up a completely different can of worms, because how do you define an American dream? Is the American dream a car and a house and 2.5 kids? Or is the American dream starting your own business? Or continuing your family's business? See, I'm a big advocate for vocational schools. I like the idea of having a skill, because we don't know where the world's going to go in the next 15, 20 years. It's important to have a skill in a trade. It's important to know how to do things. Knowledge is important as well. So as we're thinking about education, we have to think about the cost of education as well, because unfortunately, this is how much it costs to go to Harvard. Now, I don't know a lot of people that can pull this much money out of their pocket and get an education from Harvard. Obviously, a great education, yes. However, we have students coming out with these incredibly expensive degrees, no job to pay for it, thus coming out unhappy. They're throwing the blame all over the place, but the real blame starts with our decision-making on how to spend money on education. It's obviously very important. I believe that knowledge can be acquired very easily on one's own. In fact, I've had instances where I've sat in a class before and honestly learned nothing. This was in high school and college. It would have been a better serving of my time to read an encyclopedia for that amount. But that's not the way that education works. We pay a certain amount to go in class and learn the information they teach us. And so I want to sort of wrap up by saying that I'm not in any way an enemy of education. I'm an advocate for education. I'm an advocate for happy families and happy marriages. I'm an advocate for debt-free futures. And I think it's important as students and teachers and administrators that we understand we can't handle the current level of debt in our country that we are acquiring through our education. If we had full employment, it may be worth it. But we don't have full employment. We sit at 9% constantly with $1 trillion in student loan debt and no way out in the foreseeable future. So, in closing, I want to just say to anybody who's listening online or in the room here, don't get on the education train without declaring your destination, because it's an expensive ride. And I think if we can reflect on the words of John F. Kennedy and exploring the abilities within us in this American dream and the idea of what our own purpose is, that it will translate into a benefit for everyone and a greater strength for our nation. Thank you.